We have now arrived down at Scottsdale HQ, and today I'm getting fitted for the brand new MOLY SM10 wedges. Few things, I've never had a wedge fitting before, and secondly, I have never had a MOLY set of wedges. Now, I'm insanely excited because not only am I getting fitted down here at Scottsdale HQ, but also I'm getting fitted by Will Harvey. Now, Will fits the likes of Adam Scott on tour, and he's going to be fitting me today. So let's head in, let's get into the fitting, let's meet Will and see what I end up with. Okay, Will, so what's the starting point with this wedge fitting? Because I'll be honest, I've never had a wedge fitting before.
And I was a little apprehensive, but Will taught me through the process. So simply, we're going to be doing a completely blind test. The only thing I'm going to know about this wedge fitting is what loft I have in my hand. And we're going to be looking at a 50, a sand wedge, and a lob wedge. Now, what I mean by a blind test is I'm going to have no idea what grinds I'm going to be choosing. And there are a lot, and a lot of information coming in this video. So the first wedge we're going to look at is a 50 degree. And this is option 1 on the grinds. I'd like to tell you exactly what it is, but I have no idea. And I guess this is the beauty of it. I'm going down a test here where I'm not pigeonholing myself into one grind. I'm letting the club choose me rather than going, yeah, this preconception is that this club is right. Now, one thing that I've learned here and what's really interesting is how you work out the correct launch is you have to halve the amount of loft and take 2. So, for example, I'm using a 50 degree here. Half of that is 25, take 2. So roughly around 23 degrees is the correct launch angle.
Interestingly, my launch here was 30 degrees. So a little on the high side, right?
A touch on the high side, yeah. So we're doing a blind test here. I'm not going to tell you what we've just hit. We're going to try the other option and see if we can launch down a touch.
Okay, so that was 50. After we've hit this next one, we're going to go show what they are.
Exactly that, yeah. Here's option number 2.
Option number 2.
Yeah, so still a 50 degree. Same shaft, same setup, same loft lie, everything.
Oh, okay. Feels a little different, but...
Okay. So this is option 2 on the 50 degree. This one felt really good. I managed to get the launch on this first shot lower. Felt more driven, it felt a better flight. That launch was around 28 degrees. Nearly half the loft and minus a couple, exactly what Will was saying. I felt more consistent, and I also felt that this club interacted with the turf better.
So you can see a really consistent flight there, purely because of the strike on the ball. So we had 29-inch launch there, which was a little bit higher again. Not kind of exactly where we want it, but it's an improvement on what we were before, which is a big thing. Like, you don't always need to get obsessed with being perfect all the time. Like, we see the guys on TV, they're very good at what they do it all the time. So what we're trying to do is get as close to them as we can, improve what you're doing at the moment. It's not a case, it's a panic if we're not exactly there all the time.
Okay, so it's not like, for example, here I had to get to 25 degrees around there. As long as I was like, let's say 27, 27, 27, 27, then you know what's going to come out.
It's a target. Like, shooting level par is always a target, but if you play off 10, then you're probably not going to do it all the time, but you're always going to try and do it.
Okay, so what was the difference between those two?
So the first option you tried was the 8 bounce, which is slightly lower. The second option was the 12. So with the 12, it moved the strike slightly lower in the face. That's where we saw the lower launch, a little bit more spin, more consistent distance control, more consistent flight as well. So bounce is quite a tough one to understand, but to try and simplify it for you, if you've got lower bounce, the leading edge is going to sit lower to the ground, which means the ball's going to strike higher on the face. We're looking for the ball to strike on the grooves sort of 2 through 5. So by increasing the bounce, we're basically moving the leading edge a little bit higher, moving the strike lower on the face. It's going to give you a more stable face on impact. That's where we're going to see a more consistent distance, more consistent flight.
I did feel that second one I could get a bit more like sort of driving, a little bit lower.
Yeah.
I never understood how, I knew obviously how bounce affects how the club sits, but I didn't realise a correlation between that and then the strike location.
Exactly that. So what we're doing with a wedge fitting is really trying to manage that strike height, strike location, just make it more consistent for you, a bit easier to hit.
Interesting. So what is the direction from here? Where do we go from here?
So from here, we've found the bounce works really well for you. What I want to try now is something slightly shorter in the shaft. We're performing quite well, but I think we can really tighten up that dispersion by going a little bit shorter, give you a bit more control, a bit more feel.
Fab. So for me, I've learned something there too. Like, I didn't realise that correlation between the bounce and the strike location. Okay, so 2 rounds with 2 different 50 degrees in terms of bounce angles. Second one definitely felt better. Now remember, in this video, I'm getting a full wedge fitting, something that I have never ever had before.
Now, Will wanted to try one more option in this 50. Nothing to do with bounce, all to do with the length of the club. We're now trying a 35-inch shaft. This is half a degree shorter than standard. We tried it out. It almost, I'm not going to lie, felt like a little bit of a kid's club in my hand, but I definitely found it easier to find the middle of the face. I'm usually a golfer that hits the ball way out the toe with a wedge.
Yeah, I like that.
Get it to pop up, the ball doesn't travel as far as it should. This shorter option felt so much better, and I imagine when I chip, it'll also feel better too.
Very consistent direction there.
Yeah, they were a lot straighter.
Yeah.
First few were a bit left, then the ones were a little bit less left, and then straight down the banner. 29.5. I mean, you can see that straight location just there. Usually, guys, I find it in that high toe. Okay, well, we think we've dialed in the 50.
Yep.
That's sorted. Now we're on to 56.
Yeah, so we're going to move on to 56. What we're doing 56 is try all the options. So same as we did with the 50, we've got 4 heads in the 56. So we've got an F grind, D grind, S grind, and an M grind. They're all going to offer different things for you. So depending on how you use it, do you like to pitch with it? Like, do you like to hit full shots with it? Or is it something you're going to use around the green a lot? So we can figure out what we need to do from there.
Okay, I mean, I'll be honest, for me, hitting full shots to 56, I'm okay.
Yeah.
50, I love. 58, 60, nah. Not for me. So it'll be interesting when we get to that point of the video, how maybe your expertise, that can become a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah, so what I quite like to do with the bag setup is give you an option for every situation. So we might look at going for something slightly higher bounce in the sand wedge and coupling with that something slightly lower bounce in the lobber. So like, you know, when you go and play now and it's really wet outside, you need something with a bit of bounce on there.
Yeah.
Get to middle of summer, you probably find it's a bit too firm and you need something really low bounce. So we can do that with a sand wedge lob wedge combo.
Cool. So this is a blind test, so I don't know what this is right now.
Blind test again, yeah.
Okay, 3 away. Like, I'll be honest, when I put that down, I thought it was going to go left.
Okay.
The way it sat, I don't know whether that's just in my head. It felt a little bit like the first 50 that we tried.
Yeah, so I put it on standard lie to start with. With this fitting kit that we've got, we can adjust lie angle, we can adjust loft, so we can really dial in your distance and really dial in direction as well. So because, I'd agree with you, I think it sits a little bit that way.
Especially for me.
It sits a touch toe up for you. So it sits a touch toe up, and I think we've seen a consistent, smooth left miss.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take you to the extreme. I'm going to put you on 2 degrees flat, which is the most we can go on here.
2 degrees flat.
Yeah, so we'll see how that works. What we're really trying to do is give you a consistent direction. I don't want you to have to think about too much when you're setting up to the shot. There's a lot to think about in a wedge shot anyway, so the less you're thinking about the club, the better. So that's the real benefit of getting fitted for your golf clubs. Hopefully we're going to take away all that mystery, all that figuring out what the club's going to do.
Especially wedges. I think people just buy wedges and they're just like, right, okay, let's get 50, 56, 58, whatever. And I'll just get them.
Yeah, there's so many different options as well. So walking into a shop and just picking them off the shelf, it's going to be hard to find the right ones without actually hitting them and going through this process.
Oh, that sits a lot better.
Straight away, making this sand wedge 2 degrees flat suited my eye. I put it down and I immediately loved how this club looked down at the ground. It felt like I could actually hit it straight, and guess what? It did. So in this case, what I like to look at and what the ball flight did matched. Not always the case. Now after this, Will said we've dialed in that lie angle, hit me a 60-yard shot. So I did. Again, this club interacted with the turf lovely. And one thing that I'd pick out here is that launch. It was a lot lower than I would expect, in a good way. In the past, I've got sand wedge just popping up in the air, and one thing that Will mentioned was the centre of gravity change.
So you mentioned the CG is higher, like in terms of like roughly the position in the SM9, where would that be compared to this one?
Yeah, so we've moved CG. Imagine if it kind of sits around this kind of point here. We've moved it just a tiny bit higher. What that's going to do is give you a bit more forgiveness. What we want to do is strike it underneath the CG. As I was talking about before with the driver, if you hit it low in the face, it comes off low and spinny.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to do with the wedge. So by moving that CG higher, we make the area you can strike it a lot bigger. So it makes it more forgiving. It's going to make it more forgiving from the rough, from like bad lies. And when you get one where you get a bit underneath it and it normally pop up and come up short, it's going to help keep the ball flight down and get you onto the green.
Right. Okay. So what we're going to go next? Different grind?
Different grind. So we've got another 3 to try. We'll run through those. We'll get you to hit a full shot and a partial shot and see which one you like the feel of the best.
So on to the next option. I still find this mad that we're doing a blind test, I'm not going to lie, because I don't really know what I'm trying. But definitely this grind didn't feel anywhere near as good. I was striking them high in the face, it was very inconsistent, and it really felt like a little bit more of a floaty shot.
Okay, so you can really see these strikes on this club here. So that was my first one, quite high in the face, then here, and then, well, you saw the last one, that was a little bit chunky. Now, as much as you're just watching me get fitted here, I'm actually learning a lot, and hopefully you are too. Like that second one we hit there with the 56, which is going to be my 54 in my bag setup for my gapping, I don't know what it was. I just didn't feel comfortable. I actually don't know what it is right now, but after we try the next 2 grinds, Will obviously let us know.
And onto the penultimate grind option in the 56. Now, straight away, this one felt very good. Launch was low, spin was high, exactly what kind of shot I was looking for. And one thing I noticed and picked up on, I was really finding that strike location, like groove 3, 4, and 5, exactly where Will was saying. Okay, on to the final option. Now, straight away, this one didn't feel good at all. The ball was popping up in the air, and I'm not going to lie, after the first shot, I definitely ruled this out. But what's interesting, what works for me and what works for you will be very, very different. And I would never have thought that the grind has so much impact on the strike location. Yeah, this one definitely popped up.
Okay, well, so reveal to us the order in which we just hit those, because we've hit 4 different grinds, 3 with each, so 2 full shots and 1 half shot.
Yeah, so we started off with the 5614F, which is the wider sole, a little bit more bounce in there. It's actually the most played lob wedge, the sand wedge we have on tour. And then we moved over to the M grind, which is a 56M, which is 8 bounce, slightly lower bounce option, a little bit more versatile. That was the one that you found you struck higher in the face, so it was a little bit less consistent. After that, we moved on to the D grind, which is 12 bounce. We've got that same ribbon we've got in the M grind, but there's a little bit more bounce in there, which you also liked. So that kind of points towards you liking a little bit more bounce. Especially when we saw in the 50 that you
I would say I've always played more bounce, just because Tom has always given me his wedges before, and they've always had high bounce on them.
What we generally see is tour players will play with a little bit more bounce. They know how to use it, they know the benefits you get from that extra bounce. It's all forgiveness. So when you're playing in the highest pressure situations, you want forgiveness, and you want to be able to hit those shots on demand. And the last option we came to was the 56S. So you hit a couple of good shots with that one. You probably caught a couple thin, and then you caught one slightly high in the face as well. What that just points to is a little bit of inconsistency. So for another player, that might be the best option to go for, but in your case, then we didn't quite find the results we needed with that one.
So we're going for what, sorry, for me in this?
So for you, we're between these 2 options.
Okay.
What we can do now is really kind of distill that down and figure out which one of these 2 you're going to need best. So it's going to be a case of seeing what happens around the green. What do you like to do with it? Do you use it in bunkers? Do you chip with it? Do you pitch with it?
I would say, like, for me, like my 56, I would chip with it more than I would pitch. Well, saying that, actually, after that, I might pitch with it more. So that might be a club that I use more. I don't use it in bunkers. My go-to club in a bunker would be more like a 58. Or if I went with a 60, I prefer having a bit more loft in the bunker. So it wouldn't be my go-to club. But in terms of my club to chip with, it probably would be my if I had a wedge to go to first for the scenario, that would be my first one to go to.
So what we can do then is see what comes out in the lob wedge. So if we get something really low bounce, it's going to give you a load of trailing edge relief and heel relief that's going to be great out of the bunker. Then we can go for the 56S, which probably perform better on the longer shots. It's also going to give you a nice bit of contrast between your lob wedge and your sand wedge. It's going to give you a wider sole for when the bunkers get soft. Or if you're playing in really soft conditions when it's really wet, you're going to have something that's going to give you that forgiveness and help the club through the ground. So
we're going to hit a few chip shots now, little short ones. Cool.
So we've got 2 grind options to try now. We're hitting some chip shots, some open face shots, some 20-yard shots, really seeing which grind works best on these shorter ones. We feel like after the 2 options on the longer ones, we need to narrow it down because we don't just hit pitch shots, we hit chip shots too. Now, Will was telling me that the head shape stays very, very similar in the SM10 from tour player feedback.
Explain that head shape again. So you mentioned on previous models that the head shape slightly changed when you change the grind. And at what point was that? So the top of the club, when people look down, it might have been more rounded, it might have been a little bit flatter.
So one thing we really concentrate on now is the toe. So we made the toe more symmetrical now. You'll see that on all the options through the bag. So by having that symmetrical, it's going to give you a more consistent point here and also a more consistent point there. So when players sit it down and you put it in the address position, the club's going to look much squarer. Also the top line's been refined and the leading edge has been tidied up as well. So when you lower lofted stuff like your 46, 50, you're going to see a slightly straighter leading edge. And then we move into the more lofted clubs where you're going to start manipulating the face. We keep a little bit of roundness in there just to give you that versatility and that better look when it's open.
Because I actually felt really comfortable hitting that open face one. I was a bit like, again, surprised how low that actually came off.
So that's what we're looking for. We're trying to keep that launch low even when you open the face. By opening the face, we don't want to see the ball shooting straight up in the air. We just want to increase a bit of spin, increase a bit of height, give a bit more softness to the shot.
Now, how interesting is that? Okay, this is the final option on the sand wedge.
Really nice.
Needs an open face shot, 20-yard shot, and little chip shot to really feel which one's best. Now, this felt so good. I loved how it interacted with the turf, the lower launch. Even when I opened that face, it felt great.
I'm really interested to see what these are. The first one, I think, being brutally honest, was the better one.
I'd agree, yep.
And what was that?
So we'll start the other way around. So
Okay.
the one you were just hitting there was the 14 bounce. This is quite a flat sole, and when Vokies first started, this is the first kind of option that Bob came out with. So it almost looks like an iron sole, pretty steady,
Yeah.
pretty solid, pretty full. But what happened then was a player would come in and say, I like it, but I feel like when I open the face, the back edge is just catching a touch. So that's when we get an option like the S-grind.
So that's what we sort of heard, a bit more matte.
Bit more matte, yeah. So the player that came in that said he felt the same thing, they took the grind and then they just took this back edge off here.
Could you hold those both up there so we could see that? Ah, yeah,
So
you can sort of see the sort of rounded area here compared to, like you say, yeah, it's a lot sharper, isn't it?
Exactly that. So that's going to give you a little bit more versatility for the player that needs it, whereas this one's going to give a bit more resistance through the ground, it's going to give you a bit more bounce on the back edge. So carrying on through the grinds. So a few players put that in the bag, found it was really nice, but maybe when in a bunker it was a little bit firm and they felt that it needed a bit more heel relief on there and a bit more toe relief to give it a faster feeling through the ground. So that's where the M grind comes in. So you can see it's a similar shape to the S grind in the back part, but then we take the heel and toe off. So that's where that grind's evolved into. So we've got the M grind in there as well now. That was a really popular option. But what players were finding with that, because it was lower bounce, when you were hitting those pitch shots, the ball was popping up in the air a little bit like you found earlier on. So what we did then was move on to the option that you ended up on and the option that you liked, which was here, which is the D grind.
Oh, right, so it wasn't the S?
It wasn't, no. So we ended up on the D grind because on the pitch shots, you like that lower flight that we were seeing with the F.
Yeah.
But then when you open the face, you liked with that relief off the back.
Yeah,
So,
I really enjoyed that. I didn't feel like it was going to pop at all, and it felt
exactly.
like I could keep a low spinner, which is not words I've ever used before in my life.
Exactly that. So you found the benefits you got with the F grind on the full shots by having a little bit more bounce at the front, but then we got the benefits you saw from the M grind when you had it open and you can pop it up in the air and create a bit more spin. So the D grind gives you the perfect blend on both halves of the sole.
So we're locked in. That
Locked
is
in.
grind. Perfect. So we're now on to 58.
Now onto the 58, yeah. So we'll go through a few options, do the blind test again, find out what kind of shots you hit with the 58, and then we can really dial it in and give you some options where you can maybe expand to your repertoire of shots.
Repertoire.
Yeah. Yeah.
Moving into 58, and this is what I use as my lob wedge. Not gonna lie, in the past, this has been a little bit of a Marmite club for me, and not one I'd ever dream of hitting full shots with. First grind felt good. I felt like I could get a good amount of spin. I felt like I had good control. But I feel like it's not quite the dialed-in option. Have a look at these numbers here. 35 degrees of launch, 7,300 spin, 28 yards of carry. Okay, so we moved into the second option. Straight away I placed this down. I absolutely loved the look of it. Like, I honestly thought this would be the wedge for me. However, hitting the shots, it really didn't sound as good as the first one. The ball popped up in the air. I even hit a few chunky. And I guess this is a good lesson, right? This is the option where I love the look of it, but it just didn't perform. Now, in the past in this wedge fitting, as you've seen, sometimes what I've loved the look of has performed. But I guess this comes down to why you should always get a wedge fitting. We're on to the third option. And again, I still have no idea what I'm hitting. The temptation was massive, by the way. I really wanted to have a look what grind it was. So we hit a full shot, we hit an open face shot, and we also hit a 20-yard pitch. You know, like those little delicate ones you'd hit around the green. And we're now down to the final options. We hit again a 50-yard shot, an open face shot, and a little chip shot. I'm very interested to see what this goes like. One thing that I would say is when I was hitting some of these open face shots, some of them were very, very good. I felt like it wasn't a glance hit,
felt
and had
good,
a lot of meat
but
behind it, which is great.
So when you describe that meaty feeling, what you're finding is you're striking it in that really good location when we're talking about groove 2 through 5. That's where the meat of the club is. So when you open it up a little bit there, we can strike it in that area where we're getting all that material behind the club, behind the ball, gives you a really nice feeling on strike. When it feels a little bit kind of light and a little bit clicky, that's when it's moved up to this area here where the club's a little bit thinner and it's going to give you that kind of poppy kind of flight.
That's definitely where I used to strike mine, like up here, like I'd be so scared of this coming up so short and going so high.
Exactly that, yeah. So by going through this process, we can find the one that gives you the most consistent strike location and also that versatility. So opening the face, closing the face, hitting different distances as well.
Okay, so we've done 50, we've done 54. We're now going to just dial in and tell me which grind on my 58 we're going to go for.
Yeah, so we tested all these options. So you can see there's a lot of different shapes there, there's a lot of different grinds, there's a different sole width, and which is all going to give you a different feel. And you got really good at the end of telling me which one you like the look of, which one you like the feel of. So this one was a really interesting one. So you took the T-grind, sat it down, this feels amazing. I love the look of how it sits really tight.
I can see why now I'd like it.
Yeah, yeah. So you got onto this part here, you sat it really flush to the floor, which people do. Like you pick it up in a pro shop, it'll sit really nice on the ground, but the carpet's a lot tighter than the grass will actually be. But when we actually hit that, we saw the ball pop up in the air a little bit. There was kind of a bit iffy turf interaction, which I don't think you were too happy with. Which we saw the same thing with the S-grind as well. I think anything you see with too much relief on the back, like you see the S is quite a narrow sole, so you like a little bit of width in there. You like to be able to feel the club on the ground, you like to keep that ball flight low, you like to keep that strike on the face low. The M-grind was the one that was kind of middle of the road. That was the last one we hit. It was okay, it was kind of playable probably, but there was better options out there for you. These were the two that you like the best. So a little bit more bounce, so we've got the K grind here, and we've got the D grind in that one there. So both slightly higher bounce options, and we actually settled for the D grind in your 54. So we know you like that kind of shape. So when we actually tested, you sat the K grind down and said straight away, it feels like there's too much bounce.
I hate that.
It sits off the ground, I don't like it, I don't like how it looks, but then you hit the shots with it and they came out really nice. It was probably the best one feeling wise.
100%, like the 3 shots that I hit were absolutely perfect. I wouldn't have gone for anything. Like if I didn't look at it and just sort of like went and hit straight away, those shots sold it for me.
Yeah, exactly that. So one thing that would be quite nice to do now is take those 2 options onto bunker shots, little chips around the green. Have a little explore with them. What kind of shots you get, what shots don't you really like, what shots do you like, and then we can really refine down between those 2 which one you're going to go for, because they work really well on those slightly longer chip shots.
So what exactly did I go for? In my 50 degree, I went for a 12 F grind. In my 54 degree, I went for a 12 D grind. And in my 58, I went for a 14 K grind. Now, in the following video, I'm going to show you exactly what cool customizations I had done to my wedges. I had some really cool stamping and exactly what finish I went for, because there is 3 different options. So make sure you subscribe to this channel and make sure you turn the bell so you don't miss my full customization video of my SM10 Vokey wedges. Thanks for watching.